This Bubba Exotic Motorsports production is brought to you in part by Blog Talk Radio, host of our #1 rated internationally syndicated automotive podcast as heard on the Bubba's Motorsports Network, and by Schumacher Chevrolet, SchumacherAuto.com, SchumacherER.com, SchumacherAuto.com, and finally by Robertson Racing LLC.com, RobertsonRacingLLC.com. Visit them for all your lubricant needs. Morning, Bub. Here we are. We're coming to you live from inside the main facility at Bubba's Exotic Motorsports. How are you, man?
We're doing good, man. Just everything's going really good around here so far. Just start to a crazy week already because we were out last week for the last, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
We were. Share with everybody what we were doing and where we were. We talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah, we talked about it on the podcast and right before we left on Wednesday, but we had to bury my grandfather, his father, at Arlington National Cemetery. It was an absolute beautiful ceremony that went on.
I can share a picture, Bub.
Couldn't have been any better, and it was exactly what he would have wanted. So it was a long week, and now we're back here to the grind. It's just what we're doing now.
Take a look there. Everybody can see it. That was actually the case on there as they were getting ready to head him down his 18-minute walk to his final resting space.
Yep.
It was a great ceremony. So God bless all the men and women of the United States military, both past and present. I'm former Air Force. I was a police officer in the Air Force, as you know. I'm very proud to have served my country, and I go again. Hey, Bub, this is kind of coming in on the heels of this week's podcast on Saturday. It was called Pick 'em Up, Put 'em Down.
I don't really remember the podcast on Saturday. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah, I know. You guys had a good time, man. But you did another amazing job, man. You always seem to pull it
off,
But what we were talking about, Bub, is picking them up, meaning lifting vehicles,
Yep.
and setting it down, lowering vehicles. And we were talking about it from why so many people are dissatisfied when their vehicle has been lifted or dropped. And you can go, if you go to our website, bubbasexoticmotorsports.com, and click on the YouTube channel, you'll see us talking about this in great lengths. You get a very technical explanation.
Yeah.
This particular vehicle happens to belong to one of the Miami Marlins baseball players. You do all of their stuff. And this came in from another facility with the check engine light on.
Yeah.
The vehicle had previously been lifted, and there were a lot of things that were done improperly on this vehicle, correct? So take us through a little bit about what you found and what you've had to repair to get it right, because the check engine was light on.
Yeah, so I mean, this is actually, I thought that this would be a really, really good post for today, because with these Jeep JKs, there is tremendous amount of information out there, forums, product availability.
Yes.
Guys who think that they know everything about them. If you don't know what you're doing with these Jeep JKs, for some reason they are fairly complex for as basic as they are. They truly are, with modules that communicate with each other in terms of the emission stuff, the control systems, the ABS, the PCM, all of this stuff all interacts with each other, and then you start doing these big alterations to it in terms of suspensions, lift kit, wheels and tires, everything. You really alter a lot of how that stuff communicates and how it works. And this is one of those perfect examples of what happens and what is a result of lifting a vehicle. And this is 100% as good as it gets right here. There's a lot of guys out there that have these Jeep JKs that have the dreaded check engine light problem, which a lot of people look at it and they get the small stuff. You get a code for example, P0456 457 gas cap related. Well, it doesn't take rocket science to look at your gas cap and see if it's on or not, right? So you either have a bad gas cap or you don't have a bad gas cap. Pretty simple. That's a very common problem for these things, is gas cap related or the actual emission systems, which is usually a P0440 code. It's a very common problem for these, and a lot of guys struggle with diagnosing it and figuring out what the actual cause of the issue is, because it's annoying, man. You don't want to drive around with your check engine light on like something's wrong.
That's right.
Whether it be a small leak or not, it's annoying. So we have to go through and go start to finish, look at all of the things that have been modified and altered. Those are kind of like your go-to key points. I mean, you can look at the basic stuff. You can do, people go crazy with like smoke testing and running all these different things.
You don't need to do all of that.
People take it to an extreme first case scenario thinking that there's a broken valve or some issues inside the motor. It's just start with your basics, especially when it comes to lifted things. In this example, this dead-on case, this truck was lifted. It has a very nice 4-inch lift, 35-inch tires, a beautiful combo. It's what kind of like the average go-to. However, the actual evap vent tube line from the fuel filler neck to the top of the gas tank itself, the fuel tank, rear of the fuel tank. This line is actually the Mopar part. The line is actually routed below the e-brake cables. Naturally, that's the way it was built. That's the way Mopar designed it. However, when the guys do the lift kit on it, in order to change your springs, you have to extend this axle down.
That's correct.
To get the old spring out and put the new spring in.
Correct.
Naturally lifting, you're adding a longer spring in there. So you have to bring this rear axle down fairly low in order to get your new springs in. Well, at the time when this was done, the e-brake cables themselves had actually pulled on the center of this line here at this bend where this actually routes directly above the rear differential assembly, pulled on this line here, and as it did, it actually snapped off the fitting, the quick release fitting, at the fuel tank. So in this case, it literally required us replacing the entire fuel tank assembly because it's a molded unit in the top of the tank, as well as putting this line on there.
Let's talk a little bit, Bub, too, about when you noticed what had happened here, because obviously the suspension had been lowered and it pulled on all the fuel tank hoses, okay? It wasn't just the evap line that you saw that was broken. There was other damage that was done to the fuel tank as well. And whoever the technician was, if you'd call him that, his solution was take a piece of rubber hose and a screw and try to block off the top of the vent line.
Can't do that. You can't do it, and that's where you know, these kind of like do-it-yourself or these halfway fixes that you guys try to do out there. It's just not acceptable. It's truly not, because all you're going to do is still deal with the same problems.
Right.
And you're going to have the same frustrations, and you know what? You're going to be chasing the same thing because you're going to think that your repair was so good. And then your light's going to come on a week later and you're going to be like, oh, well, I've already fixed the problem. What else could it be?
That's correct.
And people just chase themselves on these things all the time, all because you're just not taking the time and doing the job right.
And one of the things, Bob, especially when you're dealing with sports celebrities or somebody who has a varying schedule, they don't
have time for it.
They don't. They may be playing at a West Coast game. They're 3 hours different. So you're on call 24/7 with them, and they're saying, look, my vehicle's down. I'm leaving it with you. I need it repaired while you're away. And that's the situation you're dealing with here. He refused to go back to the previous facility so that you could repair this and get it done right. One of the other things you found, Bob, this is the actual evaporative canister. And the evaporative canister is what? And what does it do?
So this is essentially just a air filtration system that runs in your fuel system. No fluid passes through here, nothing more than just the fumes, the vapors, and it filters it all and cleans it as much as it possibly can, and that's why it's emissions related. This will also create check engine light codes. So not only did we have 2 issues from prior, which was the vent tube line that was broken in half, additionally the fuel tank assembly that was snapped, because that is one molded assembly. I wish it wasn't, because that was a very big expense. You got to do it.
Got to do it.
Now this one, you can actually see, if you look at this top mounting bracket where it slides into the channel on the bottom of the chassis, you can actually see it's been broken off before. So our next indication was start looking through the system and go over just all the fittings and joints. It's not hard. There's maybe 6 to 8 lines on these systems in its entirety that are all venting, fuel related, pressure and return. I mean, it's not hard. You put your fingers to every one of them, you check every connection, you check every O-ring, you make sure they're sealed. And when the second we started doing that, we came across the front of the evap tank itself, which had actually been hit by something. Now, whether this was maybe from off-roading, maybe there was something in the road, doesn't matter what it is, but this was the exact cause of an additional leak that was making it think the gas cap was off. So everybody's looking here, when ultimately you should have been looking everywhere else at something smaller, something a little bit easier, not just putting 5 different gas caps on.
And Bub, what made you look that way? I know this is kind of what separates you from everybody else in the industry. You're very, very researched. You document everything. You study everything. You put your hands on every possibility till you ferret out what the real problem is. That's a big difference between you and a lot of people out there.
Well, it's and that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is a lot of guys will just start taking the first symptom and they just start throwing every part at it they possibly can, or doing every repair to that symptom that they're getting. Well, that symptom could be something so small that's generated from 5 things down the line. So in this case, like, you're getting codes for a small evaporative emissions leak, and then you get a code for a fuel cap. So everyone's like, oh, okay, well, small leak, fuel cap makes sense, let's just put a new cap on it. Well, this one's gone through 3 or 4 caps until we finally put the correct Mopar cap on there. Us as well, we did finally put the correct cap on, because the others were just cheap aftermarket ones. And these things are very sensitive, especially when it comes to things like the fuel cap with the strap on it. You want the strap to be there so it's not take it off, put it on top of the pumps, all the annoying stuff. Another thing that's really hard with these Jeeps is the O2 sensors. They have to use the factory brand O2 sensor. You can get any of the aftermarkets you want. These are just so sensitive you have to run the stock parts.
And there are 4 on this one, is that correct? There's 2 upstream and 2 downstream.
So
And
4 total.
by upstream and downstream, what we're telling you is there's an O2 sensor, O2 being oxygen sensor, that monitors the exhaust emissions before the catalytic converter and after the catalytic converter, upstream and downstream, okay? We also hear, Bub, bank 1 and 2. How do you differentiate between banks, bank 1 or bank 2
so
O2 sensors?
Very simple. I mean, bank 1 is your starting with whatever number 1 cylinder is. So for Ford guys, it would be passenger side. For GM guys, it would be driver side. I want to say the Mopar was passenger side also. I believe it was. But it's whatever starts with number 1. And that's your bank 1 side. Then your bank 2 is the opposite. So evens, odds, whatever that cylinder firing order may be, wherever number 1 is your bank 1. Moving on to bank 2 is your opposite side.
Now, Bub, one of the other things that you do, you take great time in every vehicle you touch. That's why nothing is rushed out of here. That's why it's not a race to get it down the road,
not at all.
You had found that this truck, this is the one, if you go to bubbasexoticmotorsports.com, click on the YouTube link, and please subscribe while you're there. You'll see the podcast that we're talking about this Jeep right here, okay? Now you're physically being able to interact with the Jeep, all right? The thing that you found on this Jeep was when they raised it as well, they didn't adjust the track bar properly, which meant that the front end was 2 inches outside of the back end.
Yep, correct.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. I mean, a lot of guys with these Jeeps especially, you have everything from, listen man, it's all about budget, I get it. When it comes to the end of the road, that's it. When you have a Jeep and guys want to do lifts.
End of the road, lift kit.
Right.
Got it.
Get it. Off-road, end of the
Got
road.
it.
So you could either start with, let's go low budget, let's go a leveling kit, what they consider for these things, 2.5, 3-inch lift, in the $500 range. Or you can go, completely extreme long arm travel kits that get you 8 inches of lift, full clearance for 40-inch tires for serious crawling. You can get $500 to $10,000 very quickly like that. Just keep adding it to the cart, watch it add up. So I get it. However, you do have to have knowledge whether you're doing any of those pieces of making sure you have the right components that work together. And in this case, when you just do a small lift, you still have to make sure that you recenter all of your geometry and your suspension components, because this one was 2 inches off to the driver's side from the increase in 4-inch lift. It pulled the axle over, so it wasn't going down the road evenly or straight. The client was always having trouble with pulling, and it was always wandering.
How about wear? What does it do for the tires when a car, we call it crabbing. It actually crabs down the road. That's what it's called, it's crabbing. It's walking sideways. What happened to this client's tires?
Well, everything. I mean, it wears them out. You'll have wear quicker on some tires than the others, whatever's having the most strain on it. It's just like pushing too hard with one of your legs or throwing too hard with one of your arms if you're in the field. One arm's going to take a wear over the other. It's just the way it works. Very much so was the case here. We've actually already done the track bar. That's completed. So we've got everything sitting dead center now. The alignment's straight. So there's no pulling on this thing. You can literally take your hands off the wheel at 70 and it just cruises straight down the road, which is beautiful for guys that have these newer Jeeps that they bought them because they're newer, they have more luxury to them, they want to drive them every day, and not just have an older Jeep that's just off-road vehicle use. So, we've really taken all the precautions in getting him taken care of. We've fixed all of his emissions problems. We're actually waiting for one more part from Mopar right now. That's a big thing for us, especially with these newer cars, we don't buy anything aftermarket. We buy it all from the dealer.
OEM stuff.
That's it. You're going to get the best quality product. You're not going to beat it.
Fits
For
perfect
what
every
you're
time.
paying for prices, it's honestly within a couple dollars of aftermarket stuff, and you're not dealing with the hassle of, hey, maybe it wasn't milled properly or built right, or maybe there's a mold that was wrong. So we take the time, we do it right. We use dealer component parts on the newer vehicles like this, and we just make sure it's right when it goes out the door.
And Bub, tires have a memory. Let's talk about that real quick for a minute. So once this damage has been done to this client's wheels or tires, the tires are no good anymore, are they?
No, and it's tough when you're dealing with cases where you get anything over 35-inch tires, you start looking at $500 a tire. You do $450, $500, and you go upwards of guys with 37s, 38s, 40s. I mean, you're looking at $8,000, $9,000 a tire, depending on the brand you choose. And that can really get expensive when you're only getting 10, 20,000 miles out of these tires. Now, if you do it right, you can get some of these tires to run 40, 50,000 miles, which is beautiful. I mean, if you can get that out of a set of off-road lifted tires for street use, highway driving, then you're set.
Sounds like our body shop's pretty busy next door.
Cruising
there,
over
man.
there.
They're moving over there.
Yeah.
And Bob, one of the other things that really makes you very special is you don't just look at the one piece of the puzzle for why the vehicle is in with you, okay?
No.
You touch every piece of this. For example, you found the left front tire had a cut down valve stem,
Yeah.
which was causing a tire pressure monitor problem,
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
But you've also noticed some other things on this vehicle. Let's talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, so I mean, just like you mentioned, I noticed that as I pulled the vehicle in, we actually went to the stadium today and delivered it for the client, or picked it up, and then we're going to deliver this afternoon. But one of the things we had noticed was that the tire pressure light was on. Well, I knew that something had to change because just last week, prior to him going out to training, I did the full service on this and went over all the brakes, went over all the fluids, went over all the tire pressures. They were all set good then, so clearly there was an issue, whether it be maybe a nail in the tire just from cruising, something like that. So I started going over every one of them, checked all the tires. Sure enough, the left front was down 30 pounds lower than all the others. It was at 20 versus the 50 of the others. So we check it out, going over it. First thing I do is just check for nails, basic stuff, don't go overboard. Started there, and then I found that everything was clean, no punctures in the tire. And I started just going over valve stems. I checked all the Schrader valves inside to make sure that maybe the one didn't just back up a little bit and it was just a slow leak there. It wasn't. So I kept checking more, and I found that the inner valve stem, which is where the tire pressure monitor system is, the inner valve stem inside the wheel where you don't come and see, was actually bad. It was just completely dry rotted. So as you wiggled it, it was just letting massive amounts of air out, and that was causing a leak for him as he went down the road. Essentially, anytime the stem would flex, it would leak air out. So I went ahead and pulled it, immediately got it fixed, got it taken care of, and that's that.
But again, I think this is a great illustration for the audience out there that it's not just what you see. You made the statement again that you went back behind the wheel and looked at the valve stem in the back.
Yep.
Okay? Just like you looked up top at the fuel tank for the real cause of the root problem with the mill light or check engine light, malfunction indicator light, mill is what that stands for. So again, it illustrates that you go to great lengths to look at everything before you make any kind of decision or pick up the phone and order one part.
Right. And now, I mean, that really kind of leads us to the last thing on this Jeep, and he's ready to go out on the road and cruise again, is the fact that very common problem with these Jeeps, especially when you start doing lifts, you start doing the bigger wheels and tires, or you're doing more wear and tear. Naturally, you just are. You're putting them through more strain. Is this one you can actually see is leaking from the rear differential cover, and as well as leaking from the left rear axle seal. So there's differential fluid running from the center differential down the tubes at the axle seal, and it's actually getting thrown out all around the wheel, the brake, the caliper.
We can see it on the back of the tire here.
So you can see it's been a little ongoing issue. Are those major concerns? You can drive on them with them leaking. Does it take all the fluid immediately and just dump it on the floor? No, it takes a long time to get all of the fluid from here that's sitting in the actual well of the center of the differential down this tube to a point where, eventually this will get low enough that it won't. However, you don't want it to get so low that a lot of highway driving, you're driving on low fluid in your differential and it causes the gears to heat up. That's when you'll have problems. So you want to get them taken care of as quick as possible. It's a very, very common problem with these Jeeps just from the added strain on the system, all the drivetrain components from the lift, the wheels and tires, and that's really just where it's at.
So Bob, once again, just take the time to look at things, research it. Take your time, man. Slow it down. It's not about slamming it out the door as fast as it can go, man. And again, it's what sets you apart from everybody else. The baseball players are in town at Abacoa. If you do stop by over there,
there's balls everywhere.
There's balls everywhere. I'd invite you to stop by Miss Outlaw Boutique, which is right next to Jumbie Bay, right there, if you're in town. And it's right next to Chris Volstad, the White Sox pitcher, your friend, Civil Society. So
he left yesterday for spring training.
He left yesterday for spring training. That's msoutlaw.boutique.com at 561-660-6695. And there's great motorsports apparel stuff over there. You meet Layla in person, see all the players. There's a lot of great stuff going on in Abacoa right now, man.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
It really is. And Jupiter Magazine is going to be doing some coverage of that as well. And it looks like we're going to be getting on the phone with Bud Robertson too, because you're going to need some more fluids to get this thing back out there on the road.
I suppose that's how it's going.
I've got to get back in there, Bub. I got some work to do with the good folks over there at Schumacher Chevrolet.
Okay.
We're putting a couple things together. The Turbonetics Camaro is going to be delivering sometime this week, I'm understanding.
Hopefully.
So that's going to be very exciting.
Because I got to get going. Everybody always wants me to pull through at the last minute and never hooks me up.
Exactly, man. Exactly. So, Bub, thanks very much. It's been a very, very informative segment. It's let people kind of see it in person here. Visit us online at bubbasexoticmotorsports.com. That's bubbasexoticmotorsports.com. And while you're there, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hey, Bub.
Stay tuned till tomorrow.
We'll stay tuned until tomorrow. We appreciate everybody joining us there. Let's get back to work on this thing.
I'm ready.